This show is supported by Twin Cities Eye Consultants. No matter your seat at the match, Twin Cities Eye Consultants will make sure you can see your favorite players. Book your next eye exam 24/7 at tcecmn.com. Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Loons Matchday Preview presented by Twin Cities Eye Consultants. Jonathan Harrison here, joined alongside Manny Lagos. Manny, how are you doing today? Been a while since we talked, a little bit over a month. How was your holidays? How's your New Year been?
Thank you. Yes, Happy New Year. It is 2026. I'm excited that we're doing the show, excited about our guest today, partly because it is really cold outside and my brain is having trouble thinking about this season right around the corner. And so I think I need the show. I will say one of my kind of just little tidbits is like out of sight, out of mind. When we start preseason, the guys are on the road. I honestly, this will be more of a schedule discussion, but I'm really excited for when preseason is in July and the whole roster is here. They stay here and train here. We get to like kind of watch training and exhibition games and hopefully talk about it in the show here. But long story short, going back to excited. I'm excited for our guest. He's kind of a repeat guy here, kind of maybe runs the show a little bit with Jonathan nowadays. So Mr. Andy Greder.
Andy, Pioneer Press, beat reporter for Minnesota United and covering pretty much all of University of Minnesota Gophers athletics at this point, it feels like. Andy, how are you doing? How's your New Year's? How's your holiday been? It's been a while since we've chatted.
Yeah, things are great. Thanks for having me back on. I spent Christmas in Phoenix, Scottsdale area for the Gophers in the Rate Bowl. They pulled off an overtime win against New Mexico. And then I came back after that and had the transfer portal, which is a little bit different than the transfer window. The Gophers had 21 players leave and 19 players join. So it was back and forth for a couple of weeks there, but that dust is settled and that's over with, and they don't have anything till spring bowl. And then the Gopher basketball team is in the thick of their Big Ten season, lost in overtime to Ohio State last night, and have likely undefeated Nebraska on Saturday. So that's more Gopher sports than anyone asked for on this podcast, but there you go.
No, and thankfully you only have one.
Andy, I really think you should, kind of thank us, because working with Minnesota United in these transfer windows and the transactions financially, a couple years ago, you did not see this coming in the college sports world, where now you've got players leaving and coming and going based on transactions, which is pretty crazy. So you're very similar now, the two worlds, if you think about it.
Yeah, it is. I've yet to see myself put transfer window in a transfer portal story and vice versa. So I haven't made that mistake yet. Well, the Robin Lod news happened when I was sitting in the press box, and Chonka Clay was coming and going at that same day, and I didn't put New Mexico in a Minnesota United story about New England and vice versa. So I'm just waiting for that to happen. So it's only a matter of time for me.
Had plenty of opportunities for crossover, and none of them have happened yet.
No transfer portal, New England, New Mexico, who knows?
Well, good to have you guys back. Good to catch up here. And we've got plenty to discuss, obviously, since the last time we talked. I guess the last time we chatted, we had a podcast, was the day after the Dane St. Clair news broke. So this one's a little bit different. Still a lot of transfers and ins and outs to discuss. None bigger, Manny, than Eric Ramsey, Dennis Lawrence taking off for West Brom in the English Championship. Getting off to a bit of a rough start there, unfortunately, for those guys, but wishing them all the best. Yep. Let's jump into that discussion and start off the show there. We'll talk about some of the transfers for Minnesota United, as Andy alluded to there, as well as some of the transfers across Major League Soccer today. Obviously, no game to preview, but we'll preview the preseason and what's going to take place. But let's start off with the manager switch for Minnesota United. Eric Ramsey now gone. Cameron Knowles stepping in and getting promoted to head coach of Minnesota United, the third head coach in the club's MLS era. Your thoughts on the lasting impact and what you'll take away from the Eric Ramsey era, Manny. I'll start with you.
Yeah, no, I think first and foremost, like you said, wishing him and Dennis the best of luck. I mean, I think it was, you know, a great run here in Minnesota particularly for a young up and coming head coach. And Dennis has obviously been around and has got a little more of the gray hair like me. But I think all along we knew that this would be kind of a shortish term tenure for somebody who really is ambitious to kind of grow and at his age probably try to figure out where the right environment is for him to kind of evolve and continue as a coach. And I don't think there was a huge surprise in the club, and I don't think even Eric was at all looking at like this as a negative experience in Minnesota. So to me, first and foremost, I really do think this was kind of a mutual kind of success story. And I also think the timing was mutually appropriate in that, like, we're growing into a space where we want to build people that want to be here for this next phase of how we're going to compete and grow. I mean, does feel like there's a transition year here with some of our kind of leadership going. But at the same time, the club is in a good space in terms of alignment, in terms of belief about how we're going to grow to be competitive. And so I think it was mutually acceptable. You know, we get to wish a young up and coming coach all the best in the world. I think we've got a good core here of leadership within the club that was ready for it. So on both sides, I wish Eric nothing but the best. And I look at the last 2 years and his ability to really use his coaching style, his pragmatism, the alignment of what the club's trying to do to be impactful and to make runs in the playoffs. So very cool for both sides. And again, I know he's off that tough start with the 2 games, a big loss yesterday. I hope he takes a deep breath and figures out how he's going to make West Brom competitive, because he's such a great young coach.
Andy, your thoughts on Eric Ramsey's tenure here and what's next for Minnesota United now?
Yeah, I think he was a leader of the club for 2 of their most successful years, right? I think you can look back at 19 and 20 and what Adrian Heath did with this team and put 24 and 25 next to it as an equally successful 2-year stretch. I think when you have a club record amount of points, when you reach the Western Conference semifinals back-to-back years, obviously fans know about the US Open Cup semifinal as well. So just a very successful time. I don't think in that same breath it was the most appealing style. It was obviously very defensive, very sit deep, hit on the counterattack, hit on set pieces. And I think this provides an opportunity to kind of change the style a little bit. We can obviously get into that with what Cam Knowles said at his intro press conference a week or so ago. But I think you look at a coach who came in and kind of established his style of play, had players buy in, and had success and results on the field over 2 years, and kind of had a great little track record of time there. To Manny's point about where things are at for Eric at West Brom, it's been very, very difficult for them. I think people know that they lost 5-0 yesterday to Norwich and are now just 3 points above the relegation zone. It's a meat grinder in the championship, and he kind of went into a situation that West Brom was struggling, and they've had some poor results, and there's no time for a rebuild. You've got to really kind of hit the ground running and stave off that move down to the 3rd tier in England. That's obviously what he was brought in for at the least bit. But I also think there's a kind of another facet of this, in that he's coaching on behalf of MLS as well, because of the lack of success that this league has had over there. You can look at Wilfred Nancy and how he only got 8 games and lost 6 of them and was canned, and he was likely the most successful coach in MLS going into that stretch. So there's been a poor track record of coaches going over to England and over to Europe. You include like Jesse March and Bob Bradley and maybe some others that I'm forgetting, but there's kind of a double edge to this of Eric also has MLS on his back of who he's coaching for.
For sure. And I think that's an interesting aspect that we'll all certainly be watching in this league in how he does. But going forward now, Minnesota now appointing Cameron Knowles as the 3rd head coach in club history. And as you alluded to, Andy, things might change tactically on the pitch. What do you expect, Andy? I'll start with you here. From what you've gathered and talking to him. And I guess going back to the 3 games we saw as him as interim manager back in the start of 2024, what do you expect to change tactically on the field for Minnesota under Cameron Knowles?
Yeah, so I asked him that at his press conference at Allianz Field last week, and he said kind of evolve the line of confrontation higher. He said press the ball, be more aggressive, get a little bit more control of the game with the ball. I think those are all kind of things that need to happen, especially possession of the ball. I think everybody that tunes into this podcast knows that Minnesota was league low in possession numbers last year, and that's not really a sustainable formula if you want to go on and win trophies. So I think a little bit more of an exciting brand, a little bit more attacking, kind of still being compact and tight defensively, but moving those lines up a little bit higher up the pitch, I think is what he wants to do. I think it'll kind of be an evolution like he talked about. I don't think they're going to kind of change overnight in the style. I think there's still going to be a formulaic approach to it. But I think you're going to see a little bit more tweaks and kind of getting forward a little bit more, try to possess the ball and not sit so deep like Eric Ramsey did.
Manny, from the inside of the club, Cameron Knowles, he's stepped up pretty much through the rungs of this club, joining in 2020 as a video analyst, took charge of MNUFC 2 ahead of their inaugural season, and stepped up, as we said, as an interim manager the start of 2024, been the assistant and one of the assistant coaches for the past 2 years, but now as the head coach. This is an awesome step for him, a cool journey to see on his part inside the club, building his way up and now getting the opportunity to lead this team as the full-time head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you right now, there's not a person in this club that does not respect Cam on the field or off the field in terms of who he is as a person, and in terms of the professionalism and quality he brings every day to the technical staff. It is a reminder that this is not a young coach. This is a guy that's been around for a decade and a half in this league, working with a lot of coaching staffs at different levels and absorbing a ton of information and a ton of knowledge that I expect will shape how he decides to navigate and grow this club and win. And I'm just so excited that he's leading the club because he's somebody, like I said, there's not a person in this club that does not think highly of Cam Knowles because of how he goes about things every day and what he does. Obviously, the game itself and winning is still TBD, but I mean, I don't think there's anybody internally that is not incredibly excited. So, and then even a little bit of a note of I go back decades. If we got the geeking out of people who look at the history of soccer, man, we've had some great success with New Zealanders. I go back to Nate Knox, Roger Bridges, now Michael Boxall, Cam Knowles. There's something about this community of New Zealanders where it kind of connects the two. And I just feel like that plan of having somebody who's a little bit more like experience and hungry to be here and be successful here is a great transition from the great work and quality that Eric did. And I think it just then allows to, see if Cam can help evolve from where we were from that style to put us higher up the echelon of MLS. And, I really like the way Andy talked about it. That word compactness is so important in soccer. But compactness doesn't mean you have to do it deep. You could do compactness like a middle press in hockey, or you could do compactness as a high press. So to me, I think Cam thinking about his ability that he wants to evolve, maybe that deep compactness a little bit higher up the field, and then evolve maybe about, I also now want my guys to make good decisions on the ball, to keep it more, to just put the other team a little bit more on the defensive and to think about how we're going to evolve offensively while we keep that defensive shape. I love it. I'm just super excited. Again, harder to do in reality, but I think that the structure is there based on the work that Eric's done the last 2 years to get us excited about how we can evolve this team.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Cam Knowles does as the head coach of this club. And we've, on the radio broadcast side, we talked to him post-match for home games, win, loss, draw. He's always been there and always been available and willing to chat about what happened during the game, his immediate reactions to it. So excited to see him take this step and excited to see the club take the step with him. With the new head coach, with the transition in the coaching staff, we see Josh Wolf, former Austin FC head coach, take over as one of the assistant coaches for this team. 58 caps for the U.S. men's national team, including World Cup experience. Featured for Chicago Fire, Kansas City, DC United, and as I said, head coach for Austin FC from 2020 to 2024. Manny, what is Josh Wolf, and in addition to Tom Faudree and Zarek Valentin staying on as part of the coaching staff, what does Josh Wolf bring to this coaching staff?
I think it's really an ambitious hire by the club in terms of wanting to bring a high quality coach, high quality experience, but still in a phase of there is no doubt Josh wants to learn, evolve, and grow and become a head coach still. And I think the alignment of club and the structure of leadership now is in a place where like that's not a threat to Cam Knowles. That's like because we want to get good people around Cam, we want to get good ideas and get Cam excited about being the best version of himself. While I think it still hits the DNA of our club, which is helping other people who are trying to like reinvigorate something in their career, which is where I think Josh is. So definitely have some great history with Josh. Played with him. Great player, by the way. Quick, fast, a national team player. And then, obviously he did some great work at Austin, but it's a tough. You're talking to the guy about building MLS teams from the start. It's tough. There's a grind that hits you good and bad. And that almost happens for almost every club because the reality is you're building that kind of culture and environment and things that are going to be there for a long time. And I think Josh went through some great moments at Austin and some really tough moments. And I think there's a mutual side of getting him here, him wanting to be around. This is kind of culture and environment where we are now. It signifies to me that the club behind the scenes is going in a good direction because he's that high level of a coach. And I'm just really excited for him and Cam to work together. You got two really good people, good minds, people that are I think, still on the trajectory of up in terms of their coaching careers. Super cool. It's a great hire for the club.
Yeah. Looking forward to seeing what this coaching staff can do with this club going forward. Continuing on with the amount of changes that we've had this offseason for Minnesota United on the playing field. The last time we chatted, we talked about Dane St. Clair departing, Hassani Dotson departing, the additions of Peter Stroud and Britton Fisher. But since then, we've got the new goalkeeper coming in to start off with the incoming transfers. Drake Callender, goalkeeper from Charlotte FC, played for Inter Miami a couple years before that. Has some U.S. men's national team experience, if I'm remembering correctly off the top of my head. But this is a guy who's been in and around that conversation of being a U.S. men's national team goalkeeper. Andy, what does this move signify for the Loons in their goalkeeping department, bringing Drake Callender in as the new starter for this club, replacing 2025 MLS goalkeeper of the year, Dane St. Clair in net?
He's a starting level MLS goalkeeper. I think that is the expectation for him. I think you want him to kind of approach the level that Dane was at as close as he can, but also realize that he might come up maybe a half step short than what Dane did. If he kind of doesn't have the kind of great shot stopping that Dane does, he's able to kind of approach it. I think that is the goal, right? I don't think you're looking for MLS goalkeeper of the year type levels, but you're looking at a level that can be, very high and do it for a price point that is beneath what Dane was offered to stay here. I think that is kind of the expectation when it comes to Drake.
Manny, your thoughts on what Drake Callender can bring to this club as the new starting goalkeeper for Minnesota United? Well, I'm excited. I think Andy kind of said it there in that, they're both at a similar age right now. Dane is certainly in a great space in terms of being the number one goalie for Canada, being probably looked at as one of the top, 5-ish goalies in MLS, maybe even higher. And Callender's trying to reinvigorate where he's going with his career, but they're at a similar age, but it's still young. And the opportunity for anybody that has had great experience like Callender, and he's got an opportunity now to use that and really become a top level MLS goalie. I'm excited for him because the opportunity is there. Yeah, is he different than Dane? Is he got different strengths and weaknesses? Definitely. A little bit like our team has to evolve. That position, we'll find out. And I think we got a goalie who's in a good space experience-wise and hunger-wise that I think he's got a lot of the tools to become a top goalie in the league, which gets you excited. Now, will it happen? That's TBD. But in terms of a replacement, I like that we went for somebody similar to Dane in terms of experience and years and age, because I think he's still the best years are ahead of him, not behind him.
Yeah. Sticking with the goalkeepers, Kane Rizvanovic, coming up to MNUFC from MNUFC 2, homegrown goalkeeper from the academy. Manny, you've seen this kid develop through the academy. Your thoughts, your scouting of what Kane can bring as a goalkeeper for Minnesota?
I just am so excited about this young kid. Like, obviously on the U.S. national team, youth team, U20, had some great highlights when they played. They dominated against U20 Germany, by the way, in December. Um, like fun small story. One of my best friends, when he came over, we homestay some of these guys, and so he's homestaying with one of my best friends, and the family has fallen in love with the kid. The kid's fallen in love with the family. Signs his first team contract. He's going to stay and live at that house. Like, I just love everything about him. He is dialed in and focused to become a top level goalie. Still very, very young, but super exciting that we've got like one of the younger up and coming goalies in the country who's American. Is super cool.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Other transactions coming in for Minnesota United. Andy Thomas-Shankalai coming in from New England Revolution on a trade there. New England scored 6 goals in his first 859 minutes, suffered an injury, has struggled to get back to that form that he had when he first came into the league, but 6 goals over the last 2 years, 3 assists in league play. What do we know about Thomas-Shankalai and what he brings to the Loons squad?
Yeah, I think he's still a work in progress, trying to come back from his ACL injury in 2024. He, like you mentioned, he had 0.6 goals per 90 minutes in his first year, and that really fell off 2 years ago to 0.19 or something like that, and then 0.3 last year. So a player that has attacking talent, but hasn't gotten on the score sheet quite enough. And I think that's why you see Minnesota able to get him for $100,000 in a deal with New England. That's an absolute bargain, and low risk, high reward type player for Minnesota. It sounds like his budget charge is still going to be pretty high. He was a DP in New England, so he's still going to be on the books for a big number. But as far as what you got for him, definitely some value there. I think it'll be interesting to see what Cam Knowles does with him, given that he's a left-sided attacker, and that's where Joaquin Pereira plays, and that's where Mauricio Gonzalez plays as well, primarily. So we'll see kind of where this mix goes as they get to Coachella, and where these players kind of form a partnership, and how Cam kind of sets up. We haven't gotten too much into what kind of formation Cam will play, but it'll be interesting to see how he fits in, given that the left side is arguably the Loons' best attacker right now.
Andy,
Sure.
I think in a good way, not trying to call you out, but in terms of the Chancalay, I feel like it's definitely as a Moneyball signing. I agree with you, but I think you left out the biggest piece of that, the big ACL injury. I mean, and that's really where this kind of started. He had this great entry into New England, playing well, had the ACL, and I think the 2 years he came back were really. I think it takes that long. So the reality for me is, I'm excited for this signing because, to your point, it was a cheap transaction, high salary,
Right.
but it does sometimes take 2 years for you to get back from an ACL. So I think that is the big question: is he going to be at that same level when he first signed with New England, or even better because he's at a good age? I'm really excited about it. I really am. I think, again, it's not just like signing a 31-year-old who's coming back from ACL, but you're signing a guy who should be in his prime. He should be hungry to kind of get back to, or even better than numbers when he's at New England. I think you're right. Position-wise, it'll be interesting to see what his exact best position is. But he likes to find ways to get points. I know that. I don't know if people remember when he played here against New England a couple of years ago. He was very dangerous. Really excited just because, again, he is at a good age, and once again, like Callender, hunger to really kind of elevate his career.
It's
Okay,
just
so
such a precision sport with the touch, right? I remember talking with Ethan Finley and primarily and Kevin Molino, those guys who
Yeah.
had ACL injuries, and Finley would talk about, I just don't kind of have that last 5-10%. You're back physically, you look fine, but it's just that touch, that kind of familiarity with the ball that I think is kind of that last little bit. And when you're a goal scorer, that's of utmost importance.
Yeah, I agree. And I went through my own ACLs and have kind of the skinny body. He's a little bit stockier than me, but the reality is, like, when I look at like football players, I do think they come back a little bit quicker because they have those big glutes, they got the big hamstrings and quads, and I think it's easier. I think soccer players, we want to say 12 months, but I think it's closer to 24 months usually, which is why the Ricky Puig thing is one of the bigger stories in the offseason, by the way. I cannot believe he's out for another year at the Galaxy based on, it sounds like medical doctor error in the surgery, so which is crazy.
Yeah.
But back to Chocolate. I think as a fan base, let's get really excited. I mean, this could be one of the steals of the offseason in terms of impact, in terms of us finding a way to evolve, our offensive kind of goals.
Manny, jumping ahead on my own rundown here. I wanted to bring up Ricky Pooch a little bit later on in the show when we get to the MLS transfers and MLS.
Well, no, I got our roster. Can I hijack a little bit, Jonathan?
Well, hold on. I got to ask you one more question because there's been a lot since the new signing of Mauricio Gonzalez. Andy mentioned that signing yesterday. What's the scouting report on him? Because I know kind of reading through some of the social media posts and the reaction, there's not a lot that the Loons fan base knows about this kid. So what can you tell us about Mauricio Gonzalez, a young winger from Colombia?
Yeah, I mean, I actually the first one is a good debate because I mean, in a good way. Like, I actually think he could also play the number 9 position. He's a big, kind of athletic, physical kind of player who, I think his movement is really smart. He's got a little savvy, but he's very athletic and still raw. 21, about 80-ish games at Tolima for pro soccer, and he's still growing into, I think, his body and what he can do. But again, I just think it's a great young signing to kind of add to maybe when you look at Dieng, you look at Yeboah, you look at some of our wingers, we play a 4-3-3 if Cam decides that. So long story short, I think could play any of those front three, or if we decide to play a 5-3-2, he could be a great pairing with Yeboah, or even, like I said, I bring up Dieng again because I think that'll be part of our young players up and coming. Very excited about it. I think it just adds a lot of depth and ability. I don't know if he's like, oh, this guy's gonna be a starter from day one. I'm not sure. I think this is one of more of how we're kind of cleverly building our roster to have these different levels of guys who are up and coming and trying to get into that starting lineup.
Don't miss the start of the 2026 season. The home opener ticket pack starts at just $43 and gets you a ticket to the Loons' February 28th match against FC Cincinnati, plus $20 of concession credit. The first 10,000 fans through the gate will also receive a limited edition 10th MLS season knit hat courtesy of College of St. Benedict and St. John's University. More information at MNUFC.com/tickets. Yeah, I'm very intrigued to what he can bring to this club, because seeing some highlights, it's very intriguing and very exciting to see what he can do. All right, you wanted to say something, so.
Yeah, no, you had the new players, so we got it right. So it's Shankly, Stroud, Callender, Gonzalez. Have we missed anybody?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, so I've got, and because we got to include you sometime, John. You can't just run the show. We've got to get a little bit of. So I'm going to ask you guys, because I had my list. What are the guys? So it's more like the veteran guys. This is a fun, way early preseason. We can go again and talk about the team, but right now, which players do you think need like a big year?
Andy?
I mean, Yeboah for sure. I think
my number one. Boom. You got it. That's number one. Yep.
Yeah, Yeboah for sure. I want to see what Romero could do, because obviously he was kind of benched in those last couple games in the playoffs. How does he respond? And because, with Michael Boxall's age, and I'm not trying to speculate too much, but with his age, that this may or may not be his last year. And if that's going to happen, you're going to need a defensive foundation to take over for him. And so I want to see what Romero can do.
I had this. My next one was the step up year. So I put Romero my step up year because he's only 21.
Yeah,
it was amazing for, like you said, well over half a year, and then it kind of dipped. And so, to me, I'm not quite sure I'm ready for the big year, because I'm not quite sure if he's a starter every day. Like, my big year needed guys there's one who's actually not a starter, but there's 4 more.
Okay.
Just in my list, and you guys can debate whether I'm wrong. So I'm not gonna give you Romero in my list, but I like it.
Okay. Who else did you have?
Andy?
Oh, who else do I have? Well, I mean, it's not so much you need a big year out of him, but can he sustain it to a certain level as Marcanic, right? I don't think you're expecting him to approach 10 goals, but can he still be a threat in those areas? Because that's the leading driver of his game. Can he still get a few goals? Can he still be a threat there? I think to show that wasn't just a one-year thing, I think will be important.
I love it. I think he's played as a top 5 left back in the league. And whether that's getting points or whether that's his acumen as kind of a smart two-way player and he grows his defensive abilities, yeah, I think you're there. So
I think one more for me is Banhukle Longwane. I mean, you saw his goals in 2024, 11 drop off to just 3 last year. I know he's playing a little bit deeper than he was the previous seasons, but if he's going to be pushed forward a little bit more, like we saw near the end of the season, I want to see him get back into that goal scoring form, become a goal scoring threat again for this club that we've seen him do time and time again.
Boom, it's in there. Well done, Jonathan. I totally agree. And I would even argue he regressed offensively last year, which again, no disrespect to Eric, but there was some guys in the system that we played. It felt like they were not the best version of themselves. I think Bongi was that kind of, fell to that a little bit in terms of the system that we played. So,
and it sounds like that's one thing that's been mentioned here initially is getting Bongi higher up under Cam Knowles. It sounds like that's going to be something that they're at least going to explore. I know we're going to get into this later, but I think they need a right back. That's probably one of the biggest positions on the field that they need reinforcements in, and that'll allow Bongi to kind of maybe go full time back up to right wing.
Yeah, well, I think Cam gets excited. Probably going back to a back 4 sometimes if he does that. So, I have Triantis in there only because I think he's been unbelievable, and let's see if he can keep it up. It's another player that could become a top 5 player in that position in the league. That's got to be super impactful. So there's 2 more for me in mind, but you guys have added some, which is good.
I mean, can Will Trapp keep at the same level? I think that'll be important to see.
That was an outstanding year last year for him.
He did. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't have him in that. And it's because he's just been so solid and like I don't know if
it's a good one. But the debate for me is like, because he already had such a big year and how much impact can he make? That's a good question. Because his leadership is so important. Probably, yeah. I think he's like every year we need him to have the same big year. Like we need his quality every day in training on the field. Like I guess his steadiness has never dipped up and down a little bit like Yeboah and Bongi's had a little bit. So
who else is on your list?
So I've got 2 more. One is Joaquin Pereira. I thought he had an amazing 2/3 of his season, and then a really tough kind of last 2 or 3 months in terms of consistency and really making an impact the way I think he had earlier in the year. And then the last one is the only one who hadn't played a lot is Fitz. Because ultimately the signing was not to be a fringe starter or not to make an impact. Everything, kind of said a little bit like Baribo, how he made an impact at Philly and now was sold to DC. Fitz was kind of in the idea that he should make an impact in this league. So it's a big year to see if he can or not. So that was my list was Yeboah, Fitz, Bongi, Joaquin, Triantis. I like Anthony being put in there. I probably would put Will in a different one because I think Will, is that steadiness that he has that kind of year every year. He doesn't usually dip up and down. So
Anthony's now got the pressure that his brother's in the league. So we can't go with the John Marthaler theory or conspiracy theory that it was his brother scoring all those goals now because his brother's now playing for Houston. So he's got the pressure of keeping up that goal scoring form with his goal scoring brother in the league playing for Houston. Looking forward, and we kind of mentioned this, Andy, what else does this team need heading into the season before the season starts here next month?
I think they need another attacking midfielder. It sounds like they've been trying to do so. Tommy Horvat was a target of theirs, and it looks like he's going to sign with Bristol City in the championship. So they might have to go down that list to find another attacking midfielder. I think that's certainly one spot. We already mentioned it, but right back, I think that is pretty high on their list of bringing in a starting quality right back. So I'd say those are probably the 2 primary positions, and maybe another number 9. We'll see. There's been some reports out there as well about that spot. Colin McWatt is a name that I've seen. So I think those kind of 3 spots are at the top of my list.
Manny, for you, when you look at this club and you look at the roster heading into the preseason as it gets underway here, what are the spots on the roster that you'd like to see kind of more added to it before we get the season underway?
Honestly, and I talked a little bit about this, Andy, with Andy, when we announced Cam Knowles. Like, I am not sure, and I'll tell you why. We only have 14 games in this first part of the window. For the first time since I can remember, 20 games after the World Cup. Think about before we'd sign in the second transfer window.
Top of the Leagues Cup too. That's gonna be cramming in games
and there'd
like
be
crazy.
9 games left for us in the middle of the summer. Whereas this year, if you want to hold and maybe try to find an impactful player and actually feel like they're going to be impactful, because a lot of our games are in the second half of the year. And remember, the season now goes to the third week of December if you get all the way to the playoffs. So I think it's a big 3 weeks here of preseason and Cam really absorbing where he thinks the roster is, Khaled being there and really thinking where he thinks it is in terms of like, I brought up those impact players. My step-up year players were these young guys like Dieng, Owen Jean, and Romero. Where are they? Even these young, exciting surprises. You brought up Kane. We got Paddleford, Farina, and I think Dugan is still my young surprise. So I'm torn about. I know for sure that the club is hungry to find those impact players, and I think we've tried, and you guys have probably reported Andy has on some that we've tried and haven't quite gotten. But how hard do we want to go prior to the season versus make sure we get the right signings over the next 2 windows?
MLS just shared the amount of GAM that available to every team. Obviously, Minnesota was in that leader category last fall, and they are still in the number 1 spot at $7.2 million.
Is that grown? That feels like it got bigger.
Money.
It's a lot of roster flexibility.
It is,
and what the MLS insiders will say.
Yeah, and I like I said, there's going to be a good balance of finding that versus giving some of these guys a chance, and see where we are with the new Cam Knowles there. Let's see. Like I said, I still think Andy's right. There's still possibly 1 or 2 more good signings, or maybe even impactful signings coming. But I also know if it doesn't happen, I think it's for the right reasons. I think it's because we can't find the right player to continue to build where this team's going, and then summer window will be a better time to do it.
I do got to say, Andy, you broke my heart when you reported that the Loons tried and couldn't get Mateusz Bogusz, because he is one of my favorite players from the past couple of years. He was always one of my favorites to say on the broadcast. But the fact that we tried and almost got him was exciting. Unfortunately, Houston, though, now they become my most hated team because they have one of my most favorite players and one of my most favorite players to say. But yeah, they're still trying. And let's use that to jump into the MLS transfers and start with Houston, who've made a ton of moves. As you said, Mateusz Bogusz. Look, I don't know if that's official or not, but it feels like it is at this point with the reporting that's out there. But they've made a number of big signings. Hector Herrera back after serving his 1-year suspension. It feels like, I don't know. There was, after spitting on the ref and or spitting on a player, whatever it was in the playoffs a couple of years ago, and then leaving the club for a season in Mexico, now coming back. Just feels weird, but he's back with the club. They've signed Guilherme from Brazil, and then, as we mentioned already, Nick Marcanic joining the club. Andy, they've made a ton of moves, and they're clearly trying to make a step back up into the Western Conference.
Yeah, they had a good was it first year under Ben Olsen 2 years ago? I think they won Open Cup that year. So yeah, they've kind of historically been one of the bottom teams in the league. But yeah, you see these list of moves, and it certainly grabs your attention as a team that's going to be on the upswing. I think the West.
Andy, would you say that they're the biggest movers so far in the West?
I think they're up there. I think Galaxy's made a couple of moves. Obviously, the Ricky Puig move, but I think Galaxy will be back and kind of.
Yeah, they got Glesnes. They got Glesnes from Philly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I think they're going to be more competitive. I think when you look around at kind of what other teams are doing, the West is just going to get tougher, I think.
For sure. Manny, when you look at some of the moves across the league that have happened, what's the one that sticks out to you the most? That
probably
the
one I don't want to talk about, which is Miami. Because it's personal, but it's real. Like I think people need to understand that the experiment of signing the greatest player in the history of the game at a kind of risky age has paid off. He is still awesome. He's still hungry to play in another World Cup here next year in the
U.S., and he's still now recruiting some of the best older, middle-aged, and young talent around the world for Miami. And so I think that what they're doing and how they're building it is really been impressive. There's no doubt about it. But having said that, he will be another year older. Superstar teams have superstar problems sometimes, and there will be a lot of stress on them, I think, to keep the level that they have. And the leadership of losing Busquets and Jordi Alba should not be like those two guys were amazing players. So it'll be interesting seeing how they fill that void. Then I think DC is sneakily spending a lot of money. I think it was $10 million on this Romanian player. I think Baribo was $4.5 million. There's another one in there that they're probably up north of 17 to 20 million now in the East. So I think that's interesting for me. Obviously, Toronto's trying to reload. The rumors about Josh Sargent and 18 million is just blows my mind. Atlanta seems like they're going to hold steady. They didn't move any of the guys that they spent a lot of money on, so that's really interesting. But probably the DC one and Houston are teams that are stepping up and spending, a lot more money than they traditionally do.
I think Jonathan, the move I like
on this, Jonathan, you got it on this list, but Christian Espinoza to Nashville, I think
that's the one I was going to say. Yeah,
was a huge shocker, and also just the backstory of that.
Holy cow! I had no idea.
Yeah. How do you forget to trigger his option? Like that is wild.
That sounds like
that happened.
Andy, is that like the Vikings when we missed the
draft pick?
Draft pick.
Yeah. It's worse than that. It's way.
Yeah, right. That's true.
I think.
Yeah,
because this is an established player, an assist machine, and
because if you do
have this clerical error that allows arguably your best player, one of the best players in the league, to walk.
One of the biggest assets. Yeah.
Right. Which also burns the bridge, because it sounds like he looked around and was like, oh, you guys don't value me, when they just messed up.
Right.
Yeah,
obviously led to his going to Nashville. So that was just a jaw-dropping play in this league here this offseason.
Yeah, because if you keep Espinoza, you then pair him with Timo Werner, who you just brought in, and you have Chicho Arango there. That is one hell of an attack in the Western Conference, Manny. That is a wild clerical error that certainly is going to have an impact, not just on San Jose, which we can talk about them in a second, but on Nashville, who now gets to take advantage and add him to an already really potent attack.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I think Espinoza on paper, the only thing I would say is like, I always caution guys who do really well in teams that aren't making the playoffs is like, are they ready to lead a team that, or they've been kind of damaged by all these years of not making the playoffs. So, but he is such a good player, up and down, energy, crossing, still hungry to run 90 minutes every game. So he always gives us fits when we play him. So it is.
And available all the time.
Yeah,
Never misses
amazing backstory. To Andy's point, like, it's way worse in the Viking situation, because especially in our game where our players are our assets and their value, it's almost like you just lost whatever his what was he, like probably 4 or 5 million transfer value, just given away for free.
Yeah, just an incredible move there with a lot of backstory and a lot of intrigue in it. San Jose, as we said, bringing in Timo Werner. I don't know many of their other moves have been as up to date on them, but that's an exciting signing for San Jose. I didn't see that one coming, because there'd always been the rumors that New York Red Bulls were interested because he was in the system, but him landing in San Jose is very intriguing, Manny.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm still, I go on my Minnesota United hat. It says I'm excited about us talking about our signings because I know our defensive shape and structures there. Mm-hmm. I would still my question for San Jose, what's happening behind an ability to kind of highlight these good attacking players if you don't have the defense. And I still worry for teams who think it's all about offense, because it's tough if you don't have the defensive shape to kind of help with it.
Absolutely. Any other moves I'm missing from the offseason? I know there's Walker Zimmerman to Toronto FC. Manny, you mentioned that. Andy, any other moves that stick out to you from this offseason so far across the league that have stuck out to you?
We kind of mentioned it earlier, but Jacob Glesnes to LA Galaxy, I think, is a big one.
That is a big one. I didn't see that from Philly. That's a surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else from the offseason that I guess just not even transfer rumors, just coaching changes that intrigues you about teams across Major League Soccer that you're interested to see what they're able to do this season? Manny, I'll start with you.
I mean, I was gonna answer that, but I actually want to give an update. You know, the guys got in mid-January, a couple of days here, right away, got out. They're in Irvine, California for the next 7 or 8 days, come back for a couple of days, and then they'll be in Palm Springs, Coachella for their last trip where they'll really play a lot of preseason games. So this first trip won't have any kind of public games announced, but I'm sure they'll be doing some inter-squad scrimmage and they might find some local teams to play. But it's great. I mean, they're up and running, and I think Cam is, hungry to push those guys hard. And, I think as we get out of January into February, that's the month we play soccer games now. So it'll come fast and furious. But I'm excited. I'll be out in Palm Springs a little bit, and I'm excited for the guys just to work hard. Again, I think we're settled with the coach and with where the guys are, and I think they're hungry. And like I said, Andy alluded to it, there probably are a couple more signings coming, but there's also going to be a measured approach about how we look at the year, given the World Cup break is really important in terms of us making sure we're competitive for the whole year.
Andy, I know you've been knee deep in Minnesota Gophers coverage over the past couple weeks and months, but what's the most, outside of Minnesota, outside of the defending champion Miami, what's the most intriguing team across Major League Soccer for you heading into the 2026 season?
Oh, I don't know about most, but one thing I'm interested in is how Colorado does with Matt Wells. I think they're kind of going back to the same. I don't say that as a Tottenham fan. I think you should
say there's the Tottenham connection.
But just like going to England and trying to get a young coach and kind of maybe not a page of what Minnesota did with Eric Ramsey, but can that be successful for them? I think it'll be intriguing.
Yeah, this should be a really fun season. As you said, Manny, boys out in California for preseason training. They'll have the Coachella Valley Invitational coming up starting in February. 2 games there. You can watch all of those, streaming most of those on MNUFC.com. So looking forward to seeing the boys in preseason action, and we'll be back at some point here before the season starts to do a real deep dive into what to expect from Minnesota United coming up. But appreciate you guys stopping by. Manny, we'll talk to you later. Andy, appreciate you stopping by and hopping on the podcast. Go read all of his work over at the Pioneer Press, covering Gophers and your Minnesota United, doing excellent work there, Manny.
Follow Andy's tweets too, man. He has breaking news all the time. Does a great job.
Breaking my heart with the Matoush Bagoosh news. He's covering it all, and appreciate his work.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Loons fans, we'll talk to you later. Thank you for stopping in, and thank you again, as always, to the production staff, Grace Dearson, Kyle Hayward, Evan Entler, for putting this on every week. And Loons fans, we'll talk to you at some point before the season starts.